Welcome to the Liberty Ukraine channel. With us today, Denis Yeliseevich, businessman, political observer. Denis, welcome.
Hello, Tatiana.
Please subscribe to our channel, give us likes, write us comments, and subscribe to Denis's channel. We will talk about what was discussed today. Our president proposed to the Verkhovna Rada to extend martial law in Ukraine until May 4, 2026, and mobilization will also be extended. This is not a final decision yet. These are just draft laws. But why is this happening? I remember, and you predicted it. Previously, many other speakers said that martial law would most likely not be extended in Ukraine until spring or summer. On May 4th, we will be fighting until then.
No, the thing is, it's much simpler here. Zelensky can legally lift martial law any day, any hour, any second. That is, he can extend it now. And of course, he will do that. But it's until February 3rd, right?
It starts from February 3rd, so it's extended a bit, then the 4th.
He can cancel it. That's why I suggest people don't pay attention to it at all.
People can't ignore it because we're talking about mobilization. And when we saw before how harsh the mobilization was, and most importantly, we heard from Budanov that this mobilization is ineffective. We saw his meeting where he said many are joining the SCCH and certain measures are needed. Right now, we don't see any measures being taken. We only hear from all sides that people's cards will be blocked, sanctions will be imposed, and mobilization will be expanded. What is your personal opinion on this? Is Budanov responsible in this matter or not?
But we don't know, I don't know this, and you don't know either. None of us really know. The head of the president's office is just a regular position for a person who should be responsible for printers, paper, the condition of the office, and its technical functioning. De facto, Zelensky made this position into that of a vice president, which officially does not exist in Ukraine. So I don't know, but I see something else indirectly. We can judge indirectly. That means no one from the team has really changed. That is, Yermak's team is still in place. And there was a photo recently in that photo. Well, they say it was from the back. I can't say for sure, but everyone says it was Tatarov. So even Tatarov is sitting there. So what does this mean? There are two options here. One of them, I don't believe that Budanov is so stupid that he would join Zelensky's team and let him destroy his rating so easily. If Budanov is considering politics, I still believe being president isn't part of his plans. He shouldn't even consider it, and I think he knows that himself. And secondly, Budanov may have been brought in for a specific task, such as peace negotiations. Someone regular Americans will talk to, who truly understands what's happening today. I think you'll have more questions later, and that's all for now.
What's happening in the country? Trump made a statement today that nothing happens in Ukraine without him. Yes, you can make a generalization about this because he says that Zelensky has no cards. His only card is Donald Trump. What do you mean by that phrase?
Well, he means that Zelensky has no arguments. Look, just so people understand. Imagine direct talks between Zelensky and Putin, with Zelensky refusing to withdraw troops from Donbass or agree. Putin says, fine, then we fight, we keep advancing, you can see everything yourself on the map. Then if you don't agree to a free economic zone, fine, then we keep advancing so that all of Donbass is under us, it will be our zone, simply Russian. I don't think America or Ukraine should control the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. We'll manage it ourselves instead. What can Zelensky do without money, people, or support? That's what Trump means. Zelensky's main point is that Trump can pressure and negotiate with Putin.
And today, Kuleba gives an interview to Ukrainska Pravda, and he says the war will end in 2026. No, that is, there is no chance for a ceasefire. There are chances, meaning when the war ends and when there is a ceasefire. These seem like two different questions. And if, for example, Zelensky asks Trump the questions you just mentioned, and we see that a ceasefire is needed, well, that's the demand, to cease fire. Kuleba says it's only about ceasing fire. If we recall the agreements in Anchorage, Putin categorically stated that there would be no ceasefire, only a peace agreement, and a temporary ceasefire is not being considered.
Let's break it down. Kuleba first made this statement on Ukrainian Pravda's YouTube channel, followed by a text version on their website. That's Fiala, Soros, the globalists. Zelensky is bringing Kuleba back. They're currently deciding his position, but they revealed him immediately. If this happens, it will be a joke. I personally don't believe it. I'll tell you that right away. And then he immediately goes to Ukrainska Pravda, which is supposedly considered the biggest publication, and makes statements like this. But again, this is just following the playbook. I've already explained, I just didn't hear exactly, but if he wants a ceasefire before negotiations, that's not happening. Another thing is that, yes, the war won't end in one stage. There will actually be a framework agreement first and an end to active fighting, and then a very long process. As discussed, the roadmap to full peace, likely signed around 2027, begins with a framework agreement this year. Yes, that's another matter, but most likely Kuleba, again, as they say in Ukraine, is repeating the same old story, the same old song about the main thing, let's stop shooting, but for what? Why would Putin want this? What reason does he have to stop shooting, even if Trump pressures him? So Trump might put pressure regarding the status of Donbass about a compromise, but for Putin to stop, if he's winning, why would he need that logically?
Kuleba also says, why would he stop shooting? He won't do it. It's not beneficial for him at all. Regarding the manual, it works for a reason, and by the way, it doesn't stop its work. We mentioned Budanov just recently, and here is a quote that says a lot. The Russian Volunteer Corps and Nikitin spoke. He says that the situation in Russia is terrible because their mothers, women, wives, daughters all want to send their men to the front. His condition, dead or alive, doesn't matter as long as he brings money to the family. This doesn't happen in Ukraine, and that's what we're discussing. There is an opinion that Nikitin is being directed from above by the main intelligence directorate, and that's why his words are perceived as if he's broadcasting the agency's position. Still, people are being inspired to join this mobilization. They're being given this manual put into their heads. Why?
You know, I'm ready to discuss our American figures, but I'm not ready to discuss Russian neo-Nazis who have been taken under the wing of our special services. Who cares what's happening in Russia? Ukraine is my country, and what they do there doesn't matter to me. Even if their wives volunteer for Putin in the war for money, I don't care. I'm concerned about what's happening inside Ukraine. The fact that things are really terrible in Russia and just bad here doesn't comfort me, sorry. I don't want to compare Ukraine to Russia. As for people who are banned, I don't even want to discuss RDK now.
Now let's switch to Ukraine and clarify why, for what purpose, Polymarket has been blocked in Ukraine. They say the reason was the lack of a license for activities that the regulator classifies as gambling. What do you think? Why did they decide to block this platform, which is similar to a stock market where people trade shares of probability, so to speak? Who benefits from this?
It's not really a stock market anymore. It's more like a betting shop where you wager cryptocurrency on events, like whether the war in Ukraine ends in 2026. Yes or no, there are odds. You win or lose. Why was it shut down in Ukraine? Well, I'll tell you why. Because you had to go to the president's office, talk to the right people, give some money, and then everything would work. But this situation is exactly the same as with Revolut. There are local big shots who have monopolized the market and don't want to share it with anyone, let's say with global conglomerates. We discussed this with you back then when they kicked Revolut out, didn't give them a license. And what is a regulator in Ukraine? They can delay, refuse, act lawlessly, and Revolut just said, if that's the case, goodbye. They're shocked, asking if Ukraine doesn't need Revolut. It's exactly the same here. You see the situation? If it were just bureaucracy, at least the rules would be the same for everyone. I'd also understand if they didn't fulfill or refused something. In reality, they just don't want to share with them, or it's a hint to them that they should go through a fixer. Let's solve it that way, that's all. And that's why it annoys me. You understand, the poorest country in the world right now is Ukraine. And in Europe, it's definitely the poorest. And there are still some restrictions not letting global players in. That's in every niche. I mean, PayPal, Revolut, Polymarket. This is not a normal situation.
Do you personally react to the situation that has developed around the security service of Ukraine? This situation is getting more tense. The Committee on National Security did not support the resignation of the head of the security service of Ukraine, Vasyl Malyuk, today. The final decision will be up to the Verkhovna Rada. What will they say? How will they vote? What do you think they will say?
I can definitely state one thing. This is the first time the parliament has gone against Zelensky. That's a fact we're recording with you. January 12, 2026. The parliament that was elected in 2019. Can you imagine the parliament has been in power for 7 years, and now finally they have gone against Zelensky? Well, I heard that tomorrow they're planning to hold an online session because they didn't have enough votes to remove Malyuk. In this case, I'm just an observer, as they say. I'm rooting for both sides. In this case, I'm just an observer, but I can't say anything positive about Malyuk after what he did to my family and Zelensky's political opponents. Yes, in the end, he did come to his senses. He probably turned on some common sense, but I think it's only because he was trying to save himself. Otherwise, I just watch and root for both sides, let them tear each other apart.
Still, why, what happened to the parliament? There was an important situation regarding the security guarantees agreements and the fact that the president signed that agreement without the knowledge or consultation of the parliament. And in a situation like the one around Vasil Maliuk, the parliament opposed it. Why? What exactly prompted them here? Well,
let's consider the versions that could potentially be valid. First of all, let's start from the end. We need to see who in the National Security Council voted against Malyuk's dismissal. All the Soros and Poroshenko supporters, Holos included. So, now I'm telling you for sure that National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine handed out suspicions to several deputies, yes, or whatever they handed out, they conducted searches, they did. In fact, half the parliament is under investigation, they're under tremendous pressure, and maybe now it's gotten to the point where deputies, just like Malyuk, as I just said, are starting to save themselves. So, Zelensky, that's fine, but I'll vote as instructed to protect myself. Otherwise, if I vote with Zelensky now, tomorrow I might end up in prison under suspicion or have my things confiscated. I assure you, of the 200 people there, at least 150 are definitely implicated.
And who is pressuring, who is opposing Zelensky? Who can put pressure on these deputies who don't vote the way he tells them to?
It's a very complicated setup for people to understand. First, the Soros supporters, because Zelensky kind of broke away from that movement, they're globalists. Second, it's the FBI, which is working very closely. I can tell you, there are these pyramids with the boss at the top going down, and it's all drawn out. And these threads lead to many deputies. And besides the deputies, even to smaller figures. And in America, they're really focused on this right now, so the deputies, they think they've made money. Some people will definitely slip through, but hundreds are at great risk, so we'll be watching with interest to see what happens next. People don't need to take sides, not on either side. Things are really bad in Ukraine. It's not just bad, it's terrible what's happening in the country right now. I don't want to anticipate your questions. I think you're about to ask them. It's about supermarkets, closures, about everything, and here you can't take any side. These are all people who worked for one thing, to destroy Ukraine. Putin acts from outside, while these people exploit the war from within.
Do you think that if it happens that the parliament breaks away from the president's decisions, doesn't follow them, and votes however it wants? So against this background, the parliament will propose a leader who will be presented to Ukrainians as a future candidate.
Look, it's important. The parliament won't do anything that Ukrainians need. The parliament will do what their individual curators tell them to do. Yes, they can push through the figure they're considering, but I'll tell you even more than that. Somewhere out there, they're even considering the option of impeaching Zelensky, announcing impeachment, given that the deputies won't be under control. And for this, I think you need 300 votes for impeachment. I'll reread the procedure, and that's already serious. And believe me, when will it come to that? The question is, let's say, imagine you need 300 votes. Again, that's what I assume, I'll double check. Out of 300 votes, you have 250, but 50 are missing. Believe me, those 50 will be found very quickly if it comes to that, because then they'll also start trying to save themselves. No one in parliament is honest, not in any party, not even servant of the people, just scoundrels. That's why Zelensky is facing tough times ahead. He'll have a very, very difficult February and March if things keep going like this in January. The 800 billion fund agreement with America will be signed in Davos next week. This isn't about Zelensky and Trump, but about the United States under President Trump's leadership with Ukraine. No one plans to work with Zelensky, and Zelensky-Yermak won't have access to this fund. America is setting up a platform to rebuild Ukraine, stop future attacks from Putin, and increase our people's wealth, so that they don't elect an idiot to power, you understand, and so that they can't be silenced. That's what America will do now.
You are connecting the events that will take place in February and March, which will be difficult for our leadership. Is it connected to this event in Davos, or also to the social tension that may arise among people against the backdrop of this energy crisis that is emerging? Because it comes to mind that Norway or rather the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Norway, while visiting Ukraine, said that Kyiv needs to be given more money. 4 billion Norwegian kroner, or $400 million, need to be allocated to the energy sector and 2 billion to other needs of the country. The key point is that Shmihal is seeking the first Deputy Prime Minister of Energy role. Still, will people be provided with energy even if these financial resources come in?
No, they won't, and delivery has nothing to do with it here. I meant delivery. Such a signing could boost Zelensky's public relations and make people believe things are fine, but they're not. Money alone can't help right now. You can't just use euros to build something. You need to spend them so others can do it. And for what needs to be done, you need to hire people. It takes time and it could be bombed again. We don't even know ourselves how many more attacks like this Putin will carry out. How did they happen? Secondly, today there was news that sanctioned supermarkets are being closed en masse in Ukraine. All the chains were listed. ATB Silpo and Velike Kushenia, I think, across all of Ukraine. The process has begun in Kyiv and the surrounding region because of power outages. Let's picture a supermarket. Many refrigerators and foods must stay at specific temperatures to avoid spoiling. If everything spoils, the losses are massive. With 21 hours without power, no generator can manage, so it's better to close to avoid losses. You're paying salaries, rent, and utilities, but it all goes to waste. Oh, honestly, I have no idea what people are thinking when these conversations happen. Even Kuleba said in that interview, the war won't end in 2026. Only a real scoundrel would say that to people.
But you personally, if you were in Ukraine, or you, the people who are in Ukraine, who have this business, who are strong, supermarkets aren't closing, but people are blocking roads in Kyiv after 4 days without electricity. They're outraged by the situation. So what should they do? What can they do? I ask you every broadcast, what should they do? What can they do? They can't do anything. But Norway will give money to Ukraine again to those people who are still in power.
Yes, but that's just a drop in the ocean. 1 billion or 2 billion isn't much. You can't do much with that, especially in such a short time. Currently, Ukraine faces a situation involving hundreds of billions of dollars, managed solely by America as Trump proposes. And this 700 million, a billion, as you correctly said, well, half of it will be stolen. Half of it, they'll start building something. Then new missiles come in and destroy it. I didn't just say it for no reason last year. When we talked, say, in the summer or fall, I said Ukraine wouldn't last another year. And it's exactly for these reasons. When discussing the ATB business, Silpo, or similar supermarkets, it's clear they're big business. They're not small by any means. They're massive logistics centers. In America, if something like this happened, big business would have already rebelled against the president and somehow pressured him to make peace in Ukraine. I'm saying right away, I'm not expecting this, and I suggest to people, if anyone had such a thought during this broadcast, don't expect it, because in Ukraine, the authorities can ruin everything just like that, including for big business. That's why they will quietly keep silent and live in the conditions that exist, adapting to them.
Just recently, Serhiy Dorotich and I were also talking about how entrepreneurs are closing their businesses. We were talking about small businesses, in particular, courier delivery will suffer, and those who ran information technology businesses, this sector will also suffer. And these are small entrepreneurs who, one way or another, provided themselves, their families, with everything they needed. So for these people, what solutions can they look for in this situation?
Just like everyone else, I disagree. I didn't see that broadcast. I don't know the context, but you mentioned delivery and something else. All businesses will suffer. You were probably discussing it in the context of value-added tax, right? Yes.
No.
No, everyone will suffer.
Restaurants will suffer?
Restaurants used to work with 2 receipts before, one for alcohol, one for non-alcohol, because of taxes, value-added tax, and licensing. In short, that's how entrepreneurs in Ukraine managed, but now they're all being pushed out. And this will be another reason for people to leave the country, not come back, or go into the shadow economy. You see, every time we talk like this on air, if you put it all together, what reasons are there for someone to stay in Ukraine? Not just to return, but for those currently there to remain after the war. What does this mean for a person? What has been achieved for people during Zelensky's 7 years and this parliament? Well, if they had lowered taxes for businesses, removed regulations, and brought new financial instruments into the country so you could attract capital to your business, then yes. But there's no safety, missiles are flying. There are still no mortgages in Ukraine because the laws need changing and the president must want to make the country great. Nothing has been done, but they talked about some kind of turbo reforms. Yermak said that Biden was amazed by the reforms happening in Ukraine today. Well, under Yermak, it all feels like one big madhouse. There are people in the comments writing, thank you, but they never say what for.
And Kit Kellogg said that Volodymyr Zelensky is a leader and that he is somewhat similar to Trump. Even this statement outraged people. But there were some publications that wrote that Trump suffers from severe dementia. And because he has this problem, he makes such extraordinary decisions. One moment he decides to help Iran, then he arrests Maduro, then he promises one thing to Ukraine and another to Putin. So it's all connected. This situation with this, what do you think? Is this really the work of the globalists?
This is the work of idiots. Because saying that Trump has dementia is very easy. But if a person of 80 had dementia, it would be obvious. Trump is very lively in interviews and conversations. His cognitive abilities are impressive, even compared to people in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. Secondly, he has a medical exam annually or semi-annually. In America, this is required, and if a magnetic resonance imaging showed any changes in the brain, it would immediately become public knowledge, because then such a person cannot run America. If stepping down and transferring power to the vice president were possible, Democrats would have done it long ago. Jokes like that don't work here. This isn't even up for discussion. It's all just rumors aimed at unhinged people and, for example, at what is printed in Ukraine. So their goal is to discredit Trump. I notice how Ukrainska Pravda, which we've discussed today, writes its headlines. If I were uninformed and just read headlines about Trump and Musk, I'd think they were both portrayed as unstable drug addicts with multiple mental illnesses and dementia. Did this, said that, forgot something else? People easily believe it, thinking, my God, the world's richest person invents robots and plans to colonize Mars. He's a bit crazy. Trump has dementia and doesn't know what he's doing. As soon as you open it, you mentioned my Telegram channel. I posted the ratings yesterday. Countries by gross domestic product among the world's top 20 powers. America has $31.8 trillion, almost $32 trillion. Then China with 20, then Germany with 5, and so on. All these are incomparable figures. But in a country at war where supermarkets close due to power outages and real gross domestic product is $100 billion, they say that Americans are fools, the president is a fool, the best businessman is a fool, and everyone needs to learn democracy from them. This reminds me of Russia. There's mass schizophrenia there where people think they're great. In reality, they have nukes which scare others, giving them something to brag about. This happens when you criticize others as nobodies instead of mentioning your own achievements. This is a very sad loser practice that has been imposed on our people.
Are you asking what a person needs, or rather what the government should do for a person so that they want to live in Ukraine? I think it should be a person who simply wants to live in Ukraine, who knows how to make their country a place where this person would feel comfortable living here, and they would create such conditions that other people would also feel comfortable living here. People just don't understand how to do it, how to change the government, stop this mobilization, and go to those negotiations. Kasti, the scenario is unfolding in Ukraine.
Look, regarding what to do, I can repeat media pressure, nothing more. Second, you will change the government, but without elections, no. So you need to demand elections. Comment, we need elections if you hear an interview on this topic. Also write elections in the comments and follow those promoting it. And then on election day, we actually need to change the electoral legislation, the law on elections, and many, many other things. Just being interested in these issues won't magically fix things. There's no simple solution or quick fix. But you said it right, that the president should want to live in Ukraine, because I'll immediately give you an example from Zelensky and Poroshenko. Why have people in Ukraine's history typically kept their money in offshore accounts? The tax system here is terrible, the courts are awful, and both can be bribed or politically influenced. Everyone prefers paying low taxes abroad, especially in offshore zones with minimal taxes, and settling disputes under British law in London courts. If the president and Portal 95 can do it, and Zelensky has been president for 7 years, why hasn't he created the conditions to run his business and keep his money in Ukraine? Why his friends, his acquaintances? Exactly, yes, because that's not their goal, because they consider this country to be not a real country, something to squeeze out as they see it, to build a career and then leave. Where does Sheffer live now? Where does Mindich live now? Where does his whole company live now? The Kvartal 95 group, his whole crowd. Even in Ukraine, they kept everything abroad, their bank accounts, Zelensky's real estate, and he sold his house in Kyiv. It's true, they've started building this dynasty, but clearly something's off with them. I saw the concept, and honestly, it's just not right. People who wanted that lifestyle, and there you have the answers to all your questions. But people should think about the causes and effects.
You brought this up, and today the Iranian elites also talked about it, but against the background of what? Previously, they wanted the authorities to wait, in their opinion, in order to change anything. Well, at least, yes, according to what The Economist publishes, today they had to wait for the leadership to die. Then, when Maduro took over, they realized that changes could come another way, and it could be done faster. What do you think? In Ukraine, something needs to happen for people to understand that changes can happen very quickly, but you have to do something for that to happen.
You know, if such a terrible war hasn't taught a person the basics to sit down and figure out its causes, it's very easy to say, I said Putin attacked, Putin is the aggressor, but why didn't Putin attack the Baltic countries? Why didn't he attack Poland?
Why didn't he attack them? They're not that poor. Really, they're not. First of all,
they're in NATO. Poland is wealthy and has an economy, weapons, and an army. The Baltics weren't attacked because they're in NATO, but they're small with no real economy. Most importantly, it's all NATO. Why isn't Ukraine in NATO? They've only discussed joining as a goal. This led to war, and they've been there since 2006, if I'm not mistaken. Why did all this happen? Why don't we have an economy? Why Poland? In this ranking, they're already in 20th place, meaning Poland is in the top 20 economies in the world. And Ukraine's economy is 10 times smaller than Poland's. Everyone knows how it was in the 90s. People would take goods here and go there to sell them. There was poverty, just such poverty that our people used to say that the post-Soviet space was poor and they outdid us. Excuse my language, but you know, yesterday when I wrote down this argument for myself saying I congratulate Poland on their success, someone wrote to me in the comments. He wrote, it's thanks to Ukrainians, they used Ukrainians. That's exactly the loser mentality I meant. No, Poland carried out reforms. Poland chose the concept of building a country for itself and made a lot of reforms if Ukrainians played a role in this. Now, in these recent years, migrant workers too. Yes, well, if it weren't for that, just subtract 100 million euros from a trillion. It would be a trillion euros, not a trillion 100 million. That's all. Thank you. You understand? And why didn't Ukrainians, for example, go en masse to Slovenia? And why didn't they go en masse to Hungary? No, there are our people there. Why to Romania? Probably because Poland did everything right. The language is similar, everything is nearby, and neighboring countries are close too. In Poland, you can do business, live comfortably, and everything is organized and set up. That's a loser mentality. They didn't go to Albania, which shows a loser approach. They refuse to understand and just look for someone to blame instead of considering how we made a country Putin wouldn't dare touch. Why did Poland surpass us? And so, when the president doesn't tell you about this, potentially, doesn't tell people we need this and that to set a big goal. When Trump discusses Ukraine's salaries, Rubio mentions its gross domestic product and surpassing Russia in 10 years, and Vitkov suggests business in Ukraine with an $800 billion fund. With Trump, they talk like this. Where actually are the presidents of Ukraine? Have you ever heard a single word from Poroshenko about Ukraine's success? Not a single word. And Timoshenko? These people have been in politics for 30 years, and now Zelensky wants the same thing.
Sorry, but Timoshenko is actually supporting entrepreneurs right now. She's supporting the participants of Leader Suffolk. She says that entrepreneurs are our future and they shouldn't be burdened with taxes. I read the comments people write, and many say that if there is going to be a transitional government, a temporary government, then Yulia Tymoshenko would be the perfect candidate for that.
Well, you should ask Serhiy Dorotich about that. I know that Yulia Tymoshenko has been supporting Safiok for a long time, but Yulia Tymoshenko doesn't need the success of entrepreneurs. Yulia Tymoshenko needs ratings. If there are truly 1 million sole proprietors in Ukraine, that's a huge electoral base. Hundreds of thousands with money, along with their families and employees. So this needs attention. So now she will be shouting that she supports entrepreneurs, whereas before she was exclusively for the villagers. There were many villagers, and it was easy to brainwash these people. They didn't use communication tools and joined the internet later. Their view of life is unique. They're not bad, just different. And she takes full advantage of this. She simply picks an electoral group for herself, works on it, that's all. If, for example, many gynecologists appear in Ukraine tomorrow, she'll talk about gynecology and supporting doctors so things go well for everyone. That's just being opportunistic, isn't it? She looks for an opportunity, sees it, she uses it, that's all. I feel sorry people fall for this. I know Dorotik works with her and she supports his organization. And they probably agree that if they add 20% value-added tax, then basically they agree with everything else. But I don't agree.
This isn't from Sergeyev's video. I'm the one saying this, and I'm reading the comments that people write. And I know...
I'm telling myself, not you.
When a country is poor and its people lack support, it becomes vulnerable to manipulation by other countries, for better or worse. But why are we coming back to Iran again? Today, the authorities there saw that people took to the streets in protest, demanding a better standard of living. And the authorities are saying that someone is trying to intervene by force. In particular, America is trying to intervene militarily in Kyiv, in the leadership and activities of Iran. And that's why they want to remove this president themselves and put another one in place so as not to create chaos in Ukraine. So do you see anything similar here in Ukraine, that those who have already been in power or someone like them are ready to come to power again to prevent chaos? But hiding behind that in order to quickly seize power for themselves and be in the president's chair again.
Subtitles. Honestly, I didn't understand this parallel, but in your question, I want to focus on something else. Pay attention. The United States is monitoring the events in Iran. Just now you were describing the situation. People pay attention. The United States was monitoring. Now they're meeting with this crown prince of Iran.
And
the CIA is making new reports. Elon Musk's Starlinks were jammed with electronic warfare. Now they're trying to restore them while Trump and the CIA observe. Is there a critical enough mass of people and their radical mood for us to intervene and change the government there? And Iran returned to a democratic course, to a normal civilized country. Did it cooperate with the West or not? The same thing in Ukraine. Tatiana, I told you about 6 months ago, maybe even 8 months, that this is exactly how America will act now. No one will work like those guys write who are now hiding out, and I sympathize with them. What Trump doesn't see that we're here, TTSK, you'll be sitting at home. And Trump in Washington is supposed to think about your well-being and how you should live on. No, I'm not encouraging a riot, just stating a fact. That's exactly how it works. If there is mass discontent in Ukraine, according to the CIA, there will be truly massive and unanimous, absolutely uncompromising discontent, then Trump will step in and change the president. He could have changed him during the war, and all this could have been done sooner. If he sees them being beaten by 5 people, being roughed up, women being beaten, sprayed with gas, children almost being beaten, the father being taken away, the child left on the street, dogs abandoned on the street, this is fascism, fascists, and he thinks they endure this. Their television was turned off. The telethon, they endure. They were forbidden to transfer money from Ukraine. They endure. Taxes are raised. They endure. Everything is cut off. Electricity, gas, they endure. Putin attacks them with missiles, and they still endure. So what does Trump have to do with this? And people are voting. There are some polls, comments. The 91st is demanding. RIK is demanding to return Crimea to Donbass. I say, yes, let's forget Crimea and Donbass and accept what we have. I didn't lose them, and the people aren't to blame. Officials and authorities are responsible for everything in the past. They chant mantras like, here's Crimea, now we're giving Crimea. But right now, people in Crimea have no electricity and a storm is happening. They don't care about Crimea under these conditions. Today, they're focused on electricity, gas, their child, parents, family, work, and studying, not Crimea. But they'll tell you there, and by the way, speaking of this, did you see what came out about that Petrov, that total propagandist? He's hiding beneath the military cemetery cover.
There.
Where they bury the soldiers. He's hiding under the cover there. And that bastard sits there preaching that everyone should go to the front and telling women with children to hurry to Ukraine, or else you're not Ukrainian anymore.
What is this?
This is an existential war. This is for real. And you see, what I'm getting at is, if the authorities use such methods, and are they using this Petrov? They didn't just start now. They tried to get him on the Rada channel before the war. If you work with people like that, if you use those stinking Federal Security Service methods, then all of this is worthless. If the president had relied on others' abilities and chosen those who care about Ukraine, the country would be different and the war wouldn't have happened. But he surrounded himself with the worst kind of scum. But probably a good person wouldn't surround himself with people like that. I think you surround yourself with people similar to yourself in these matters.
But people are shouting that, on the other hand, Trump seems like he would help these people who are protesting. Well, he talks about it. He says that he's working on the situation, that he will help them. We're being told that if we end the war, if we agree to this peace deal, then he will help us too, but in a different way, by helping to rebuild our country. And those weak leaders of the countries, you could say, brought misfortune to the country. People are protesting there, and Trump is getting involved in that. You can draw that conclusion. On the other hand, if Putin, as many speakers who come to us say, offers Trump better terms than he can get from Ukraine, Trump will stop helping us.
That's complete nonsense. By the way, it's good that you told me this. I didn't know that there were such statements after the broadcast. Please send them to me and I'll explain it to you. For Trump, Ukraine is, first of all, a resource, a signed agreement. Second, it's still the largest country in Europe, right next to Russia. It's a country that has nothing at all. Trump will stop helping us. Trump still stood up to Putin. Everyone takes this into account. A lot of money has already been invested. With all the work done, when they mentioned negotiations, Vitkov, Kushner, and Putin could offer him more. Putin might have done so yesterday. Russia has more resources, minerals, and generally more of everything. But that's elementary. It would seem easy to pull them away from China, but that's not happening at all, right? That's why people are being sold some nonsense, to distract them from what's important. And about Trump, whether there's a weak leader or not, he helps where there's a potentially good country, it's under a dictatorship because Zelensky is not a strong leader. And these Ayatollahs, they're strong. They may not imprison or kill someone, but they can still ruin a life. In this world, can you do anything without help? Iran can still launch a Shahed or missile at Israel. That's their power. But what can you offer, and why would anyone want that kind of power? They're only strong with their own people.
This war is not right, and the seizure by Maduro, which ended up with what happened in Venezuela. Now America will be extracting oil, and this is from China. Did China and Russia unite or not? Because earlier China used to buy oil from Venezuela. Now this oil is under sanctions. Now most likely it will buy this oil from Russia. And just recently, about 3 months ago, there was information that China significantly increased its oil purchases from Venezuela and from Russia. I remember that Dorotish analyzed this. He said that they want to stock up on this oil for some reason. Do you think Trump already had the idea back then to do something with oil in Venezuela? That's the first question. And the second is about the distancing or rapprochement between China and Russia.
This is a blow to the chain of dictatorial countries as a whole. It's not a specific action to isolate Russia. Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea, and Venezuela would already be gone. These Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa countries, you know, they organize themselves and they need to be separated from this. Brazil was also behaving badly before. They need to be separated. India too. They need to be separated from this. And that's what Trump is doing. Of course, Trump had this plan even during his election campaign. He knew very well what needed to be done. And there, Maduro was also part of the plan, and everyone else too, just everyone. With Russia, it was planned to do things a bit differently from the start. Do you know how to quickly make peace, really start lifting sanctions from them, and America will begin to cooperate with Russia? Break away from China, end your dictatorial actions and oppression, and we'll trade, you'll profit, sell energy resources, and sanctions will be lifted. That's how it was. But Putin doesn't see it and didn't want to implement it.
It's very important that we want to implement the best plan that Ukraine can see, and that we get out of this war and start to prosper. People, I really ask you to subscribe to Denis Yeliseevich's channel, subscribe to Liberty Ukraine, write us comments, and like our videos. We'd like your feedback on our conversation. Thanks for your attention. Until next time.
Thank you.